Anna Jones at Aspen Ridgeline Landscape, and we're going to talk about starting some seeds at your house. It's really important to sanitize your hand before touching this. It has really ideal conditions for growing a lot of things you don't want, like some mold and fungus. Now this is how we usually start seeds, one of many ways that we start it. You don't have to get a full setup like this. We actually sell some pre-made kits where they, instead of having loose soil, they actually come in pellets that absorb water and expand. That's a great way to start it at your house because they're a little bit bigger of a space, a pellet, so you don't have nearly as many as these do, which is a great home starting one. This is what we're going to do. We start with a pre-moistened soilless mix, a seed starting mix, and basically it's just a really light mixture so the seeds really can get some nutrients and the roots can grow pretty quickly. So we start with a pretty moistened one. The way I like to do it is, get the soil a little bit moist, fill it in there, and then go ahead and take our seeds. Now it depends on the kind of seed. If you want to put, if they're really tiny, obviously it's going to be hard to count, so it's usually just a nice little sprinkle is fine. If they're a little bigger, anywhere between 2 to 4. Some bigger ones you might want to do like 1 to 2 seeds, some smaller 3 to 4 seeds per pod. You sprinkle those in, and that's basically what you need to just do to start them off. Now you could take a little bit of a toothpick or something and cover them lightly with some soil and mix it up. A lot of seeds, especially those really tiny ones, do find that they're just laid just barely on the soil. After that, for watering, it's really important. You can water from the top. We suggest a small spout watering can just because it helps you direct so you're not over watering or under watering too many. But the best way is actually to get a tray full of water and set your seed tray in there so it absorbs from the bottom up. That way you're not disturbing any of the seeds. So once it's planted, well watered in, you actually take one of your greenhouse cover lids and you want it sitting on there pretty tight, snug, so it holds in a lot of that moisture. And then we suggest putting it on a heat mat, whether they make certain plant ones and it just does a low level of heat, so it raises it up just enough that it really gets those seeds germinating quickly. And once they start germinating, when you see a few start growing, we actually suggest moving it slightly off so it has a little bit more airflow in there, but still keeping it on there a bit. And then once they start popping up, you actually turn off the heat mat, and that's when you start moving them to the light. You can do this whole beginning steps without any light usually. Some seeds actually prefer like 0 light to grow. Once they start sprouting, you just move them to the light. Now this one, you can see, has already started to germinate and sprout. We have some tomatoes in here and something else, a couple other things in here. Since only a few of them are germinating and some of these other rows aren't, we've been just keeping it on there, still with some heat underneath it, but just slightly moved to the side to let in a little bit more airflow so it doesn't quite overheat, because if you start doing that, then it's going to start stretching the plants out. We did move this one too light because we had so many in this couple of rows germinating that we didn't want them to get leggy and not the other ones. So this one is sitting underneath light with the greenhouse cover slightly shifted. It is still on the heat mat for right now, but probably in the next day or two we'll take it off the heat mat so we don't stretch out any of the new plants. For watering, again, you can water, we suggest watering from the bottom, but only if the entire thing is pretty dry. Now, if it's slightly dry, like you can see in this one, that's when you just can kind of go in with your little watering can and just give it a little bit. A little actually goes a long way. This holds in a lot of moisture, but it's still really important to check it every day to make sure things aren't drying out or getting too wet. This one we've had about 3 weeks ago. It no longer has a greenhouse cover on it, no longer has a heating mat underneath it. We keep it within 10 to 12 inches from our grow lights. And then once it starts getting a couple inches tall, we'll extend the grow lights out another foot. And as they keep growing, we'll keep extending the grow lights so they don't get scorched and burned. We'll let this one keep growing a while before we start separating everything. And we just kind of keep an eye on it and watering it. Now, you don't necessarily need a grow light but you need to have it in a really sunny spot in your house, like a south or west side where it gets close to 8 hours of sunlight a day, which is a little hard up here. But if they don't get that, then they'll start getting quite a bit leggy, stretching out, and you won't have the healthiest of plants. It's not necessary to get a grow light, but we recommend it, and that's what we grow ours with. Once they get a little bit bigger, then we'll go ahead and split them up into the individual pots or pinch them back, so we only have one plant per container.